Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. Who is that guy? That was what Bai Xiaochun was thinking as Du Lingfei and her group left. His hand still hurt from delivering that slap. It was only now that he realized that the energy passageways in his hand seemed dangerously close to collapsing. Don't tell me he's a demigod? But demigods aren't that tough. Besides, I'm a diva now. Wait, could he possibly be the celestial? Did he slip into the trial by fire to check out the trial takers firsthand and see who would be a good apprentice? The mere thought caused him to shiver with fear. Impossible. If he were really the celestial, then why was it so easy to slap him? Also, if he were really the celestial, wouldn't he have exterminated me instantaneously? After putting some more thought into it, he calmed down a bit and told himself that he was overreacting and that the young man couldn't possibly have been the celestial. Either way, he realized that his actions before had been too impulsive. Sighing, he turned and made his way off in a different direction. A few days later, he had left the desert and was staring out at a seemingly endless swamp. The ground was made up of either sludge or puddles of bubbling water. When those bubbles popped, they released turbid mist that swirled in the area. As a result, even the sky above the swamp was overcast and murky. He hesitated before entering the swamp, something about it seemed very odd, and the entire place fairly thrummed with vile fluctuations. He immediately felt the need to be more on guard than ever. This trial by fire is completely bizarre. He thought about trying to go around it, but the desert was dangerous in its own way, so in the end, he proceeded forward. At the same time, he continued to send out messages with his transmission jade slip. In terms of his own safety, he wasn't too worried. As long as he was careful, he should be fine. But he couldn't stop thinking about Big Fatty Zhang, Hu Xiaomei, and his other friends. Every day that they were in the trial by fire alone meant more danger for them. He proceeded through the swamp with the utmost caution, and as a result, didn't encounter any risks to his life. Before long, half a month had gone by. He did see some dangerous situations. For example, he saw a flock of vicious-looking birds flying in the air. Moments later, an entire horde of leeches shot up into the air and ate the birds alive. He saw tiny larvae swimming in the swamp water, and also saw 7 or 8 corpses. Once he saw a huge spider, fully 300 meters tall. It glared at him, but could sense that he was not worth provoking, and eventually sank back down into the waters of the swamp. This place could be completely deadly to someone in the nascent soul stage. Even as he proceeded along, his mood sinking, he faced the first truly life-threatening situation. A huge, rotten hand burst out of the water like the hand of a giant. Rotten flesh and chunks of coagulated blood flew off of it as it rocketed with lightning speed toward Bai Xiaochun. If it had only been a hand, it might not have been as shocking. But an arm followed the hand, and it was only by drawing upon significant fleshly body power, his undying hex, and his newly acquired flying shuttle that he was able to extricate himself from the danger. After reaching safety, a defiant howl echoed through the swamp behind him. Forget the nascent soul stage. This place is even dangerous for devas. His nervousness and anxiety continued to mount. In the following days, he ran into some other cultivators from the 4 rivers. Only a few were from the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect. However, so long as they weren't from the 9 Heavens Cloud Lightning sect, he would still help them as best he could. They were always profoundly grateful, and he would always ask them about Big Fatty Zhang and his other friends. He would even show them pictures he had stored in jade slips. Finally, after relentlessly asking everyone the same questions, he finally found someone who gave him a clue about Big Fatty Zhang. Senior Bai, I saw that person about 2 days ago. It was to the west of here, and I'm pretty sure that Master Lightning Origin from the 9 Heavens Cloud Lightning sect was chasing him. Bai Xiaochun's eyes immediately began to glitter with cold light. 2 days ago, to the west. After expressing his thanks, he sped off as fast as he could to the west, sending repeated messages to Big Fatty Zhang along the way. As a diva, Bai Xiaochun could move much more quickly than a nascent soul cultivator. Sonic booms stretched out behind him as he shot through the swamp. Not being exactly certain of where Big Fatty Zhang had been, or where he was heading as he was chased, his only option was to search blindly. Big Fatty Zhang was in an area not too far from Bai Xiaochun, huffing and puffing as he sped along, picking leeches off of himself as he went, which was a very painful process. At the moment, he didn't dare to fly in the air. After being teleported here, things had started out safe enough. With the residual power his will core had provided to his nascent soul, he had been able to evade any major dangers. Unfortunately, his actions had attracted the attention of Master Lightning Origin, who mistakenly believed him to be in possession of some extraordinary magical item. No matter how Big Fatty Zhang had attempted to explain himself, Master Lightning Origin didn't believe him. Master Lightning Origin's cultivation base was much higher than his, plus he was accompanied by 2 other cultivators from the Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect. Just when it seemed like they had been about to catch up with him, he had taken to running on foot through the swamp, and thus escaped them. Unfortunately, running through the swamp caused countless leeches and other vicious entities to swarm him. Thankfully, his will core power kept him mostly safe, although he still ended up getting injured, and was still in danger because of Master Lightning Origin and his companions, who continued to give chase by flying through the air. It was now the 3rd day of the chase, and Big Fatty Zhang was starting to lose hope. He was tired, his eyes were bloodshot with fury, and his cultivation base was teetering unstably. He was almost out of energy. Furthermore, things were made more difficult by the fact that he didn't want to fly through the air higher up, and thus had to brave the dangers of the swamp. On more than a few occasions, he had nearly been killed by leeches. What the hell kind of place is this? And what's the deal with that Master Lightning Origin? He's such a bully. Big Fatty Zhang was infuriated, but had no options at his disposal. As he fled, he would occasionally try to send messages to fellow cultivators from the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect. He was reaching his limit. If it weren't for the fact that his pursuers didn't want to go down into the swamp to find him, he would likely already have died. Furthermore, none of the messages he had transmitted had received any responses. He was like an oil lamp sputtering on the verge of going out. Chuckling bitterly, he realized that his speculations had been off, and that he likely wouldn't make it out of this trial by fire alive. However, that was when a tremor passed through him. His will core intuition was telling him that a profoundly powerful entity was making its way through the swamp toward him, and that it was only about 3,000 meters away. From what he could tell, this newcomer seemed like a diva, which meant that he had no chance of surviving. Well, if I'm going to die, I'll take some of them with me. Eyes flickering with madness, he shot up into the air, which was right about the time that the monkey-like Master Lightning Origin approached, flanked by 2 other cultivators wearing northern-style robes. At the same time, the air several hundred meters away rippled as a 300-meter-tall spider suddenly reared up from within the swamp. Master Lightning Origin and his companions were clearly shocked, and prepared to flee. As for Big Fatty Zhang, he was just about to try to block their path when, all of a sudden, the transmission jade slip in his bag of holding vibrated. "Where are you, eldest brother?" Big Fatty Zhang's jaw dropped. Facing this sudden chance to escape, he ignored Master Lightning Origin and his companions, threw his head back, and roared at the top of his lungs. "Help me, Xiaochun!" His cry echoed out into the ears of Bai Xiaochun, who was some distance away. Stopping in place, he jerked to face the direction of the sound. Then, energy surging, he shot like a lightning bolt in that direction. The will of the heavens stirred, and a huge version of his face appeared in the sky as he closed in on Big Fatty Zhang. When Bai Xiaochun's face appeared up in the air, the Master Cloud Lightning whom Bai Xiaochun had not yet encountered happened to be flying along through the swamp in another location, his expression very grim. When he sensed the diva fluctuations rolling out, his eyes flashed with cold light. He was essentially the older brother of the twin Master Cloud Lightnings, who had once existed as one person with one body. Although a cultivation accident had split them into 2, their minds were still connected, and they could communicate with each other via secret magic. The older brother already knew about everything which had occurred between Bai Xiaochun and his other half. As the fight had been playing out, he was in the plains area, separated from the desert by the swamp. At that time, he had been too far away to be of any help, but had immediately begun to race toward the desert. Now that he was here in the swamp, and had suddenly detected Bai Xiaochun's aura, he called out to his younger brother via their secret magic. "Bai Xiaochun is in the swamp. Hurry over, and we can fuse together and kill him." The younger of the twin Master Cloud Lightnings was just about to leave the swamp and enter the plains. However, upon receiving the message, his eyes flashed angrily, and he turned and headed back into the swamp. Meanwhile, Bai Xiaochun was shooting like a meteor toward Big Fatty Zhang. Because they hadn't been very far apart to begin with, his aura was already able to descend on the area around Big Fatty Zhang. As it did, the huge spider that had just risen up suddenly shivered. From the look in its eyes, it apparently viewed Big Fatty Zhang as being special for some reason. Ignoring the pressure from Bai Xiaochun, it leapt into the air, howling as it shot toward Big Fatty Zhang. Shocked, Master Lightning Origin and his companions fell back. However, before they could move very far, the spider shot out several strands of black silk, which wrapped around the entire group. Blood sprayed out of Big Fatty Zhang's mouth as he was then dragged down into the waters of the swamp. Master Lightning Origin and his companions reacted with utter despair, and struggled to free themselves, but were unable. Just like Big Fatty Zhang, they were dragged down. At the same time, black mist began to pulse on all of their faces. From the way it wriggled and writhed, it almost looked like they were covered with black spiders. Big Fatty Zhang was the weakest of the group, and was the most adversely affected. He immediately passed out, whereas the more powerful cultivation bases of Master Lightning Origin and his companions enabled them to fight back a bit longer. As the spider sank down into the swamp and dragged Big Fatty Zhang and the others with it, a sound like heavenly thunder burst through the air. Bai Xiaochun's enraged face appeared up above, and shouted, "How dare you!" The swamp below immediately sank down because of the pressure, revealing Big Fatty Zhang and the others. As for the huge spider, it shivered and tried to escape. Meanwhile, Bai Xiaochun's expression distorted as he transformed into a beam of light that shot down toward the depression in the swamp. At the moment, Bai Xiaochun wasn't thinking at all about conserving spiritual energy or the power of his fleshly body. Waving his hand, he sent his flying shuttle whooshing out in front of him. The shuttle sent the swamp water shooting out in all directions, simultaneously destroying countless leeches and larvae. By this point, Big Fatty Zhang and the other captives were completely out in the open, albeit tied up with black silk. Without any hesitation, he grabbed the silk attached to Big Fatty Zhang and yanked him upward. That in turn caused the huge spider to be pulled up out of the swamp, to hang in midair. The spider stared at him with hateful, crimson eyes. Aware that it couldn't escape, it sprayed a huge amount of black silk at him. "Have a death wish?" Bai Xiaochun shouted angrily. Back before he had arrived, it might have made sense for the spider to ignore him. But now that he had unleashed the power of his cultivation base, it made sense for the spider to give up on its prey. And yet, it went beyond that and attacked him. Bai Xiaochun was not happy at all that it had tried to take Big Fatty Zhang away so forcefully, and the matter was even worse considering the black spider marks on Big Fatty Zhang's face, which were clearly venomous. Although many people would be unable to assess such a bizarre poison, as a grandmaster of the Tao of medicine, Bai Xiaochun instantly realized that it was a type of venom which affected the soul. And its function was to kill the host. Eyes flashing with cold light, Bai Xiaochun performed an incantation gesture, sending his flying shuttle forth to sever the silk threads that bound Big Fatty Zhang. At this point, the image of a crescent moon appeared in one of Bai Xiaochun's eyes. He was well aware that there were many entities in this swamp that should not be provoked, and that if a fight broke out, it needed to be ended quickly. Therefore, he called upon the Sun Moon Vast Sky Incantation. The first level of the incantation involved summoning a moon. At the moment, he had cultivated the technique to the point where he could summon a partial moon. As he utilized the technique, a shocking crescent moon appeared up in the sky. Moonlight instantly spilled down in astonishing fashion, causing all of the lands to turn silver. When that light touched the black spider silk, it melted away. A look of shock and terror appeared on the spider's face, and it tried to sink down further into the swamp. However, it was too slow. An image of a moon had already appeared on its back. "Fallen moon," Bai Xiaochun growled. Brilliant light shot down from the moon onto the spider, causing the moon mark on its back to expand rapidly. An agonized shriek could be heard from the spider as the moon symbol dug deep into it. The spider trembled, and then green, viscous fluid began to seep out from inside of it. Then, even as it hoped to try to escape into the swamp, it exploded. It had been destroyed in body and soul. Only when the spider died did the black marks on Big Fatty Zhang and the other cultivators vanish. Master Lightning Origin and his three companions had not yet lost consciousness, so they were able to see everything which had just happened. When they saw the traces of the venom vanish, they immediately turned and fled in 3 different directions, their faces as ashen as death. Never could any of them have imagined that chasing Big Fatty Zhang would end with a diva patriarch from the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect coming over in a fury. "You pick on my eldest brother and then think you can just leave?" There was no way Bai Xiaochun would simply let them escape. Pulling the still unconscious Big Fatty Zhang with him, he took a step forward and waved his finger, sending the flying shuttle shooting toward the first of the 3 cultivators from the north. A scream echoed out as, in the blink of an eye, the shuttle stabbed through the man, and then headed toward the second. After cutting down the second, it shot at high speed toward Master Lightning Origin. It was in this very moment that the enormous face of Master Cloud Lightning appeared up above in the sky. "Do you dare, Bai Xiaochun?" Bai Xiaochun was not surprised at all at the sudden appearance of Master Cloud Lightning, and in fact, had detected his impending arrival earlier. However, in his urgency to save Big Fatty Zhang, he had ignored him. Now, he glared up at the face and said, "Are you egging me on or something? I absolutely hate it when people egg me on." Without any hesitation, he sent the flying shuttle shooting forward with greater speed. Even if the monkey-like Master Lightning Origin had been more nimble, he wouldn't have been able to dodge out of the way. Expression that of despair, he shrieked, "Master, save." Before he could finish speaking, the flying shuttle stabbed through his forehead. Bai Xiaochun hadn't set out with the intention of killing these people. However, their actions would have led to Big Fatty Zhang's death if he hadn't come to save him in the nick of time. The sight of his apprentice being killed caused Master Cloud Lightning to howl, "Bai Xiaochun." His face swirled together into a beam of light that shot directly toward Bai Xiaochun with deadly, destructive power. If Heavenspan Island was the imperial palace, and the Celestial was the emperor, then the demigod patriarchs from the river source sects would be analogous to the four heavenly kings, such as the giant Ghost King. As such, Bai Xiaochun and Master Cloud Lightning were like two powerful subordinates of two heavenly kings. Although they were technically on the same side, in truth, there was enough tension between them to lead to deadly conflict. On the outside, the demigod patriarchs would ensure that their followers didn't get into conflicts such as the current one. But inside a trial by fire like this, where deaths were expected, then even if one killed the other, they could easily explain it away after leaving. Master Cloud Lightning had been forced to simply watch as Bai Xiaochun pushed his other half to near destruction. Then, that same person went on to personally kill his apprentice. Because of these grievances both old and new, Master Cloud Lightning was furious. As he supplanted heavenly will with his own, the huge face in the sky began to send crushing pressure down. Master Cloud Lightning howled at the top of his lungs, shooting through the air toward Bai Xiaochun with such shocking speed that lightning bolts began to rise up around him. It only took the blink of an eye for more than 100,000 lightning bolts to build up, making it seem as if the entire world had become a world of lightning, with Master Cloud Lightning as its sovereign. Bai Xiaochun's pupils constricted. He could immediately tell that this Master Cloud Lightning was much stronger than the other he had faced. Both were in the mid-diva realm, but the one from before had apparently just made his breakthrough. The one he faced now seemed to have been in the mid-diva realm for quite some time, and was actually very close to stepping into the late realm. From that, Bai Xiaochun could tell that single-handedly dealing with this version of Master Cloud Lightning would be similar to handling someone even more powerful than Chen Hichan, Li Shendao or Bai Zhenshan. In fact, this was the most powerful enemy he had ever faced in the Heavenspan region. There was no time for thinking or planning. Bai Xiaochun shot backward, throwing the unconscious Big Fatty Zhang into his bag of holding. Even as he did, tens upon tens of thousands of heavenly lightning bolts slammed into the spot he had just occupied. As heaven and earth shook violently, the enraged Master Cloud Lightning performed an incantation gesture with his right hand, causing the heavenly lightning to begin to compress and converge on in his hand in the form of an enormous bow. "Time to die," he howled, pulling back on the bowstring, which caused an arrow of blackish-violet lightning to form. This was no magical item, it was a divine ability unique to Master Cloud Lightning. Thunder crackled as a supremely destructive power began to build up, and then pierced through the air toward Bai Xiaochun. All of this takes a bit of time to describe, but actually took place in the time it takes a spark to fly off of a piece of flint. Bai Xiaochun didn't seem worried at all. Not only did he not regret killing Master Lightning Origin, his wrath was now completely focused on Master Cloud Lightning. "You really think I'm afraid of you, fool?" he shouted. Although he feared death, after all of the things he had experienced in life, he had come to know that now was the type of situation in which to put his poor little life on the line. If he didn't, then it would surely be lost. Instead of backing up, he advanced, waving his hands out in front of him as he barked, "Living Mountain Incantation, Rumble." Countless rocks and bits of rubble shot forth to adhere to his body. In the blink of an eye, he had transformed into a 300-meter-tall stone golem. Bursting with energy, he clenched his hand into a fist and punched out, landing a blow directly on the blackish-violet arrow of lightning. Intense rumbling sounds echoed out as, at the same time, the enormous face of Bai Xiaochun slammed into the enormous face of Master Cloud Lightning. As the ground quaked violently, the blackish-violet lightning arrow collapsed, and cracks spread out over Bai Xiaochun's living mountain incantation form. In the end, the arrow was no match, and was destroyed, allowing Bai Xiaochun in stone golem form to continue on toward Master Cloud Lightning. Master Cloud Lightning took a deep breath, and cold light flashed in his eyes. Waving his left hand out in front of him, he gritted his teeth and said, "Cloud Lightning Forefather, first transformation." Almost instantly, Master Cloud Lightning's body began to twitch and writhe, almost as though snakes were dancing about beneath his skin. A vicious expression gripped his face, and he let out a howl like that of a wild beast. At the same time, he began to grow larger, until he was fully 30 meters tall. No longer did the right and left halves of his body look so disparate. Although one side was burlier and more filled in than the other, he looked much more proportional. At the same time, his aura transformed, filling with an explosive energy that made him seem at least 3 times as strong as before. Shockingly, a red halo of light sprang up to surround his person, which was clearly a powerful defensive ability. After completing his transformation, Master Cloud Lightning looked up, and both of his mismatched eyes were bright red. Radiating madness and animal ferocity, he lunged toward Bai Xiaochun's stone golem form. Bai Xiaochun was so startled that his eyes nearly popped out of his skull. He can actually shapeshift, and this is just the first transformation? That must mean there's a second and a third. Damn it, there's nothing I hate more than fighting shapeshifters. However, now was not the time to ponder the situation. Eyes burning with ferocity, he jumped forward to meet his enemy's attack. I'll fight you so fast and hard you won't be able to transform a second time. Utilizing the mountain-shaking bash to accelerate rapidly, he shot toward Master Cloud Lightning. When they collided, a massive boom rocked all heaven and earth. The shockwave sent water flying up everywhere in the swamp, and caused numerous creatures to flee in all directions. Nothing dared to get close to Master Cloud Lightning and Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun's stone golem form was significantly damaged, but at the same time, the red halo surrounding Master Cloud Lightning was about to collapse. Blood oozed out of the corners of his mouth as he staggered backward from the force of Bai Xiaochun's attack. I can't believe this guy got so strong after transforming, Bai Xiaochun thought, his chi and blood churning madly inside of him. However, he continued to press the attack. As for Master Cloud Lightning, he looked up, his hands flashing in a double-handed incantation gesture. Cloud Lightning Forefather, second transformation. Bai Xiaochun's eyelids twitched as Master Cloud Lightning again grew larger. Now he was 60 meters tall, and his body looked even more symmetrical than before. Furthermore, he was 3 times as strong again. This time, instead of a red halo surrounding him, it was orange. This level of defense left Bai Xiaochun stunned. Another transformation? Not only was Master Cloud Lightning much more powerful, but it was very irritating to Bai Xiaochun that, despite what he had said moments ago about not providing an opportunity for a second transformation, Master Cloud Lightning had gone and done just that. Well, you won't get an opportunity for a third transformation, he shouted. Even as he prepared to attack, Master Cloud Lightning spoke in a loud voice. Cloud Lightning Forefather, third transformation. Cloud Lightning Forefather, fourth transformation. Cloud Lightning Forefather, fifth transformation. Rumble. It was impossible to determine whether he intentionally did it in response to Bai Xiaochun's words. Either way, Master Cloud Lightning transformed several times in a row, causing intense, thunderous rumbling to echo out as he grew from a height of 60 meters to 90 meters. Then, he went from 90 meters to 120 meters, and finally 150 meters. Although the two halves of his body were not perfectly symmetrical, they now matched much better than before. His surging energy had reached a shocking level, and as he hovered there in the air, he actually looked like the forefather of all humanity, burly and tough, emanating intense pressure that would shake the minds of anyone who could sense it. Clearly, this version of Master Cloud Lightning was vastly more powerful than before. Furthermore, he was surrounded by a glittering shield of light that was so dazzling that it seemed completely impenetrable. Bai Xiaochun was stunned, and he was also convinced that Master Cloud Lightning had intentionally transformed multiple times in a row to mock him. It's time for you to die, Bai Xiaochun. Master Cloud Lightning shouted in a voice that shook all heaven and earth. Bai Xiaochun shivered, his eyes crimson from the humiliation he had just suffered, and his rage mounting by the second. You're pushing things too far, Master Cloud Lightning. If you can do all that shapeshifting, why not do it all from the start? There was no need to wait until now and then intentionally humiliate me. Without any warning at all, he launched into the throat-crushing grasp, backed by the mountain-shaking bash. In the blink of an eye, he was blasting forward with lightning speed. He even used the undying hex, adding more speed, and placing him directly in front of Master Cloud Lightning. A thump sounded out as the throat-crushing grasp landed on the multicolored shield of light surrounding Master Cloud Lightning. Then, indescribable force shot back into Bai Xiaochun's arm, like a wave of power that completely destroyed the power of the throat-crushing grasp. He actually pierced through 3 layers of the shield, only to be stopped by the 4th. In almost the same moment, Master Cloud Lightning attacked in quick and violent fashion. He waved his arms, causing numerous lightning bolts to shoot out, which transformed into silver snakes that slammed into Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun's stone golem form couldn't stand up to the force, and collapsed, sending countless bits of rubble and rock showering out in all directions. Even as Bai Xiaochun's true form was revealed, the lightning bolts lashed toward him. Shaken by how perilous the situation was already, Bai Xiaochun quickly performed a double-handed incantation gesture and then waved his hand out in front of him. Frigid chi exploded out, and 9 frigid projections appeared, which leapt to intercept the lightning. Bai Xiaochun didn't retreat by even a step. He currently wasn't really thinking, and was acting on fighting instinct alone. Ignoring the lightning, he took a step forward, and simultaneously clenched his right hand into a fist. A black hole sprang up that sucked in all of his aura, all of his chi and blood, all signs of life. His body twisted and distorted, withering in bizarre fashion. He was unleashing the undying Emperor's fist. The intense pressure that suddenly weighed down on the area caused Master Cloud Lightning's face to fall. Panting, he gave up on any thoughts of fighting, and began to back up as quickly as possible. Even as he began to move, intense rumbling sounds filled heaven and earth as a huge, shadowy figure appeared behind Bai Xiaochun. He wore imperial robes and an imperial crown, and seemed to be looking down condescendingly on all creation. Master Cloud Lightning's heart began to pound, and his mind spun. The shield of light around him flickered as he sped away, and yet, his retreat had begun too late. The fist struck. A projection of Bai Xiaochun's face filled the sky, and a paramount energy spread out. Rumbling filled heaven and earth, and all of the lightning bolts which had surrounded him shattered into pieces. The image of a fist appeared, an image which caused Master Cloud Lightning's mind to be overtaken by madness. Crushing all the lightning in its path, it sped forward and then slammed into the multicolored shield. The shield was capable of rebuffing Bai Xiaochun's living mountain incantation, even when combined with the mountain-shaking bash and the throat-crushing grasp. But, it was incapable of standing up to a quintuple-power undying Emperor's fist. A massive boom echoed out as the shield shattered into bits. Then, the fist went on to smash into Master Cloud Lightning, sending him tumbling backward like a kite with its string cut, blood spraying out of his mouth. As he flew backward, he shrank from his previous 150-meter height down to 120 meters. Apparently, that was his only way of standing up to the domineering, destructive power of Bai Xiaochun's undying Emperor's fist. And yet, that wasn't enough. As Master Cloud Lightning skidded to a halt, he coughed up another mouthful of blood, simultaneously shrinking from a height of 120 meters down to 90 meters. Then he coughed up a third mouthful of blood, and shrank to 60 meters, 30 meters, and then returned to his original size. Finally, he coughed up a fifth mouthful of blood. It took all of that to survive Bai Xiaochun's undying Emperor's fist. 300 meters away, he finally righted himself and looked up, eyes flickering with venom. Then, he chuckled coldly. That was what I was waiting for. The fist strike my other half described. Very strong indeed, but not strong enough to kill me. Next, I'm going to combine with my other half. When that happens, Bai Xiaochun, you're dead. His eyes flickered as he snorted coldly, then suddenly shot away with a spectacular burst of speed. He left some divine sense behind though, apparently waiting for a response from Bai Xiaochun. He was also prepared for a situation in which Bai Xiaochun started to chase him. However, he was confident in making him regret such a decision by severely injuring him with another trump card. Based on what my other half told me, he thought, if he gives chase, he'll be doing so in a severely weakened state. In that case, I might not even need to combine with my other half to kill him. Even as he plotted about what to do next, Bai Xiaochun heard the words he had uttered moments ago, and his pupils constricted. This version of Master Cloud Lightning was far stronger than the last one he had faced. Therefore, it was easy to imagine what level of cultivation base and battle prowess he would achieve by combining. He would definitely be very difficult for Bai Xiaochun to deal with. His best option was to end the fight right now. Just when he was about to start moving, though, he hesitated. Did he say that on purpose to try to trick me? But then, his eyes shone with determination. Even if it's a trick, I still need to do something. I can't give him a chance to combine with his other half. Considering what type of enemy he was facing, he knew that he only had one option, no matter how much it pained him to resort to it. Without the slightest hesitation, he locked down on one of his drops of undying blood, and then used the method described in the Undying Codex. To crush it, as the undying blood shattered, a shocking blood chi erupted, filling his entire body. A red mist surrounded him as he felt himself accelerating at rapid speed. At the same time, his current state allowed him to rapidly absorb the energy of heaven and earth in the area, turning him into something like a black hole that could absorb all living things. The air around him distorted and cracked, and at the same time, his energy surged. Master Cloud Lightning nearly let out a shriek of terror. Trembling, he realized that the sensation of deadly crisis which was rising inside of him vastly surpassed what he had felt when facing the undying Emperor's fist. What divine ability is that? Damn it, that fist strike of his actually wasn't his trump card. Master Cloud Lightning felt like every inch of him was screaming in terror. There was no time for thought or planning. Even as Bai Xiaochun closed in, surrounded by swirling red mist, Master Cloud Lightning drew upon every ounce of energy he could muster to flee in the opposite direction. At the same time, Bai Xiaochun looked up at him. His eyes were red, almost like blood. He looked completely different from before, a vicious predator, whose eyes shone with bloodthirsty light. When Bai Xiaochun looked up, it was as if the entire world had turned the color of blood. Waves began to roll out across the water that made up the swamp, and the countless entities which lived within it sensed Bai Xiaochun's aura, and instinctively began to tremble. Master Cloud Lightning's heart was racing faster than it ever had in his entire life, and his mind was spinning in terror. Damn it, how could this Bai Xiaochun be so strong, he howled in his heart. He's not in the early diva realm. All of a sudden, he realized how arrogant he had been, and cursed his decision to anger Bai Xiaochun. Even worse was his childish decision not to flee when he could have. He felt like slapping himself in the face over and over again, and yet, all he could do was try to flee at top speed. It was in that moment that Bai Xiaochun looked up. Because of the red mist which surrounded him, it was impossible for anyone to see his blood-red eyes clearly. And the voice with which he spoke almost didn't seem to be his own. God. Killer. As soon as the words escaped his lips, he suddenly vanished, becoming a streak of blood-colored light that pierced through the air at indescribable speed. In fact, it moved so quickly that it seemed capable of moving through time. It was much faster than any type of teleportation. In the blink of an eye, he was upon the fleeing Master Cloud Lightning, and before the man could even react, slammed into him. A scream echoed out into the air, and Master Cloud Lightning trembled violently. He immediately began to wither up, a sensation that filled his heart with indescribable terror. How can he move so fast? He's absorbing my life force. Multicolored light flared as Master Cloud Lightning tried to fight back, and yet, he was no match at all for Bai Xiaochun's godkiller technique. Within moments, Master Cloud Lightning was nothing more than skin and bones, his face ashen and tinged by the shadow of death. The flame of his life force was already flickering on the verge of being extinguished. It happened too quickly. A single blow, and almost all of his life force was sucked away in shocking fashion. Trembling, Master Cloud Lightning let out a shriek of despair. No, immense regret filled him, and yet, in that moment of ultimate calamity, he suddenly realized that there was something strange going on with Bai Xiaochun. He seemed dazed within his blood mist, as though he weren't even conscious. A tremor passed through Master Cloud Lightning as hope suddenly appeared within his despair. Knowing that now was not the time to ponder the situation, he took a deep breath and unleashed another divine ability which reversed the withering from before. Then, multicolored light shone brightly as he gritted his teeth and shot downward toward the swamp below. In an instant, he was inside of the swamp, and yet a moment later, Bai Xiaochun looked down, and followed him. The entire swamp vibrated. In the briefest moment, hordes of leeches were killed, not by the vibration, but by Bai Xiaochun's blood mist, which sucked away at all the life force around it. It wasn't just the leeches, but the larvae and other entities in the swamp as well. Anything that got too close to Bai Xiaochun ended up dead. So, there is something strange going on with him, Master Cloud Lightning thought. That magical technique is completely terrifying. It has to have a weakness. He was delighted to have escaped with his life. Obviously, Bai Xiaochun was in some sort of semi-conscious state, and had descended into the swamp itself, not to chase Master Cloud Lightning, but to absorb the life force that it contained. That gave Master Cloud Lightning the chance he needed. As Bai Xiaochun absorbed the life force in the area, Master Cloud Lightning began to speed through the swamp itself. Although doing that was dangerous, it wasn't as dangerous as dealing directly with Bai Xiaochun. There was clearly something strange going on with Bai Xiaochun, and yet, he didn't even think about looking over his shoulder to try to determine what it was. Bai Xiaochun's magical technique was simply too terrifying, and left Master Cloud Lightning with only one thought in his head. Unless he managed to combine with his other half, he had to stay away from Bai Xiaochun at all costs. After the time it takes an incense stick to burn, the bedraggled Master Cloud Lightning was quite a distance away. At that point, he burst out from the swamp water. He was covered with leeches and larvae, but didn't even take the time to remove them. Gasping for breath, he shot forward as quickly as possible, glancing over his shoulder, a look of terror on his face. That Bai Xiaochun is a complete monster. He just won't die. He's definitely one of the biggest enemies of the North. But even if he turns out to be stronger than he's already shown himself to be, he still isn't in the mid-diva realm. Once I combine with my other half, I'll definitely be able to kill him. Having reached this point in his train of thought, he once again made contact with his other self, and then sped off into the distance. Meanwhile, now that Bai Xiaochun had dropped down into the swamp itself, a dramatic vortex had begun to spread out in all directions. The leeches in the swamp were fleeing madly this way and that, as were the larvae. Even more powerful life forms were doing the same, including spiders, giants, and other terrifying creatures. As the storm spread out in all directions, all life forms that it touched had their life force drained away, leaving them withered in death. It lasted for the time it takes 2 incense sticks to burn. Then, a boom filled the swamp as Bai Xiaochun shot up into the air. There was no blood mist around him any longer. His face was ruddy, and a look of incredulity could be seen on his face. He was also trembling uncontrollably. At the moment, he wasn't even thinking about Master Cloud Lightning. Instead, he shot off to a location with some land where he could sit down cross-legged and examine himself closely. After a long moment passed, his eyes opened, and they flickered with terror. Damn it, what just happened? How come I lost consciousness when using the Godkiller technique? What's the deal? As he thought back to what had just occurred, his heart shivered with fear. One thing he was certain of was that after he lost consciousness, his mind was not taken over by any other entity. His body had been acting of its own accord, to absorb as much life force as possible from around it. The mere thought of that caused Bai Xiaochun to shiver in anxious fear. No way. Before, I had no idea how the Godkiller actually worked. But now that I do, I can't use it. It's too dangerous. The feeling of having just lost control of his own body was completely horrifying. A long moment passed. Suddenly, a look of surprise appeared on his face, as he realized that the destroyed drop of undying blood was now fully recovered. He could only imagine how much life force he had absorbed in those 2 incense sticks worth of time in the swamp. If only I could control it, then it would be a much better divine ability. Feeling torn, he looked down at the swamp and then scanned it with divine sense, only to find that it didn't contain any life force at all. Even distant reaches of the swamp were completely vacant of any life force fluctuations. How much did I absorb? Shaken, and eyes wide, he suddenly felt a bit excited. Ha ha ha, who would have thought that I'm so awesome? Even after losing consciousness because of the Godkiller, I still accomplished a lot. He then began to travel through the swamp a bit, whereupon he discovered that there were indeed some signs of life force here and there. However, as soon as he neared, they would vanish, clearly in an attempt to avoid him. That only got him more excited though. At one point, he patted his bag of holding, pulled out Big Fatty Zhang, and touched his forehead. Big Fatty Zhang's eyes opened, and he looked around blankly for a moment before noticing Bai Xiaochun. At that point, he immediately jumped up and prepared to say something. However, Bai Xiaochun beat him to the punch. Clasping his hands behind his back and sticking his chin up, he said, "Eldest brother, you were ambushed in this swamp. I got so mad that I forced all of the living beings in the swamp to apologize to you. As a result, from this moment on, they will avoid us at all costs. Don't believe me? Go around a bit and see what happens." Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.